Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
John, no H, sent me a note and said, Steve, check out the story here from the Justice Department. And I believe I have said before that if you find your name in a press release issued by the Justice Department, you may have made mistakes. And so we've all heard these stories about people who are working someplace, they've got access to something. And they use it on their day off, or they take it home and use it, or they do something with their work, machinery or something. And you hear about that and somebody gets caught, but everybody does it, And the question is, what did they take and what do they use it for? This is one of the goofiest stories I've heard. It comes from the Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office out of Arizona, the website justice.gov. Former Homeland Security investigations agent sentenced for theft from agency. So the guy was a Homeland Security investigations agent, and he's been sentenced for theft, for stealing from the agency. What did he do? Well, he's 44 years old from Mesa, Arizona, was sentenced last week by U.S. District Judge Susan Bolton to 2 years of federal probation in order to pay $133,000 in restitution to the Department of Homeland Security. He pleaded guilty to theft of government property in October of last year and agreed to resign from the Department of Homeland Security investigations as part of his plea agreement with the government. So he's pled guilty, he's been sentenced, he's been ordered to pay restitution. And what he did was, between November of 2019 and October of 2021, while a special agent with the HSI worked without permission or authorization for several private companies while on duty and used his government-owned vehicle for such unauthorized outside work. So you go, wait a second, the guy had a company car and you're telling me he drove it around and for that he's getting all this stuff happen to, and he lost his job, he's going to pay back $133,000? Well, like I said, it gets silly. The man drove the government-owned vehicle that he had agreed to use only for HSI duty purposes while working for Amazon, Uber, and Lyft during time periods he was supposed to be working for Homeland Security. So the guy is working for Homeland Security, driving a Homeland Security vehicle, and on company time, he's driving for Amazon, Uber, and Lyft. So if you were in Arizona in that time period and you called an Uber or a Lyft, there's a chance that you got a ride from Homeland Security in a Homeland Security vehicle. His actions in working for these companies while on duty for HSI resulted in tens of thousands of dollars in losses to the government. Now, that's the tricky part. I wonder how they calculate those, because we've talked before about people who are on the clock but not working. And they call that wage theft. I did a video about that about a week ago. But if you are working for Homeland Security, is it simply that they're going to say, well, so many hours that you were driving for Uber and Lyft and Amazon, that we're going to take that and just make that proportional to how much your salary is and call it that? Is that it? So they're saying that it's tens of thousands of dollars in losses to the government. But of course, they're asking to repay $133,000. And the question also is, if he got paid from Uber and Lyft and Amazon, does he have to disgorge that money and pay that money to the government because they were paying his salary while he was doing that, and presumably he was making that money? As a result of the conviction, the man's forfeited much of his salary during the time period of his on-the-job criminal activity, and as a federal felon, he'll never lawfully possess or use a weapon ever again. That's the U.S. Attorney Gary Restaino speaking. His dereliction of duty was a grave disservice to his hard-working law enforcement colleagues and taxpayers alike. The United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office of Professional Responsibility conducted the investigation of this case. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sean Loki, District of Arizona, Phoenix, handled the prosecution. And it makes you wonder how they caught the guy. Did he tell people he was doing this? Did somebody figure it out? Did somebody call an Uber and he showed up? Was he at meetings and his phone buzzed? He goes, I got to go do something right away, and it goes and gives a ride to somebody? This is all very, very strange. But I mean, I've heard stories of other people who were attempting to do two jobs at the same time, right? And I've also heard of people who have taken company vehicles home and used them for personal purposes. And I can actually think of a whole bunch of examples of that. I knew somebody who worked for a municipality, shall we say, and there was a vehicle that they used at work that was a work vehicle of sorts. And the person brought it home and used it to work the snow out of their driveway and then brought it back. Somebody found out about that. And that's not good. I've also heard of people who took vehicles from one of the automakers. The automakers, a lot of their facilities have got vehicles they use just to drive around the facility. Some of them are plated, some of them are not. And occasionally stories would be heard of vehicles that had plates on them that disappeared over the weekend and came back on Monday morning. And if you look, a bunch of miles got put on it. And the person in charge of tracking those vehicles would say, that's interesting, did not give anyone permission to do that. But the keys to those vehicles are in a place where they're available to a lot of different people, because a lot of different people use vehicles during the day. And those vehicles are often being used to just run around a big facility someplace. And vehicles not there over the weekend, nobody misses it except somebody notices it. And the question then is that a problem? But of course, a private company like General Motors, Ford, or Chrysler is one thing. But when it's the U.S. government, it's another. And I would have to suspect that having a job as a Homeland Security Investigations agent would probably be a pretty good job. And, jobs are hard to come by these days, and the better jobs are harder to come by. And so when you get yourself that good, high-paying federal job, you screwed up by using your government car to deliver packages for Amazon and to drive Uber and Lyft. And that's the other question, is they mention that, he's forfeiting a bunch of his pay. That apparently is where the $133K comes from, $133,000. Was he not making enough money as a Homeland Security Investigations agent that he actually had to supplement his income using Uber and Lyft? Again, I'm not making fun of Uber and Lyft. I know people who drive for them. And it's a great thing to be doing if that's what you like to do, because the hours are flexible. You can work as much or as little as you want. But the point of the guy's doing this, I'm surprised he wasn't delivering pizzas, So the guy was a Homeland Security Investigations agent, and he got caught working for Amazon, Uber, and Lyft during work hours in a work vehicle. And for that, he's lost his job, can't ever get a job similar to it again. He now has a record, and although he only got probation, no jail time, no prison time, he's been ordered to pay back $133,000. And the question is, can he do that? And if so, how long will it take? And if he has his own car, presumably he could start working for Amazon, Uber, and Lyft and pay it back that way. So John, who spells his name without the H, sent that to me. And I appreciate the note there because, of course, John is pronounced both ways, with an H, without an H, the same way, John. And it's kind of like when I talk about Stephen with no V or PH. They sound the same, but I'm Steve, spelled with a V. Thanks for sending it. That's from justice.gov, directly from the Justice Department. Crazy story. The former Homeland Security Investigations agent sentenced for theft from the agency, driving Uber, Lyft, and Amazon on the job. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Comedy is simply a funny way of being serious.